Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello, how are you, Damir?
All good, all good. Working hard as always, and very happy to present the result of some of this work. So very eager to show you how it works.
Awesome. Maybe we can wait 30 seconds for people to join now.
Sure.
There are already questions like, can we buy a domain today? Come on, guys. Wait for the presentation. We will tell you all.
Yeah, basically the presentation is gonna be one first part where we explain globally how things are imagined, the strategy we have. A second part where I will dig a bit more into the technical stuff. And at the very end, I'm going to actually go, for those who are interested, for those who are not, feel free to leave, but I'm going to go through the code to actually show you how things works, how things are implemented. And yeah, so for those who are interested, you can stay at the very end. I will take a bit more time to show you how things work.
Perfect. Let's go. So can you see the slides? I think yes. If not, just scream and we will do something. So yes, today we are presenting the Massa name system. You can also call it Massa decentralized DNS. It's like a big step towards the truly decentralized web, a web where there's nobody between you and the smart contracts, where you could use the apps, decentralized applications with no single point on failures, no hacks, or no censorship. It's also one of the two main unique features we have on Massa with autonomous smart contracts. I mean, apart from the high performance and the high decentralization of the core blockchain, of course. So yeah, here I'll give you some background on why we need the decentralized web through decentralization for the web, the purpose of the name system, and also a bit on the deployment roadmap. And Damir will give you some details on the design, on how to use it, yeah, more in practice. So change the slides. Yes. So let's start with Web 2. Like, what is traditional web? Let's say you want to tweet about a rocket. You open a browser, you type twitter.com or x.com now. You connect, you write a tweet, you send it, and then other people can see it and like and retweet. But what happens here exactly between you and the database that is storing your tweets and the other users that are reading your tweets? First, you connect to a DNS server, a server which tells you where to find the website, the front end of twitter.com. In other words, what is the IP address of the server? Then you connect to this IP address, which gives you the front end files like, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. And then you run this front end on your computer, which displays the page on your screen, which lets you write a tweet. Then you hit send. It sends a tweet to the backend server. So you connect it to these three kinds of servers. I made it a bit simplified, but that's mostly the principle. And then it is accessible to your followers who will read the database, display the tweet on their screen, thanks to the front-end code that they found, thanks to the DNS server. So between you and the other users, there's a DNS server, front-end server, and back-end server with a database. All of these can go wrong. They can be hacked, modified, tampered with. The rules can change even if you don't like it. They can go down, be censored. Like they are all single point of failures, the DNS, the front end, and the back end. Here I gave you the example of a social network like Twitter, but it's the same for anything like banks, finance, games, media, basically anything that is not peer-to-peer on the internet. Now enters the blockchain. So its first use case is to provide a decentralized database, a database with immutable rules that are written in code that anyone can help to validate when they connect to the peer-to-peer network with their node. So let's say now you're maybe used to it. Let's say you want to own this rocket NFT that you've seen on Twitter. So you type OpenSea.io in your browser, you get the IP address for the DNS. From the DNS, you get the front-end files from the front-end server. The interface gets displayed on your browser. You connect your wallet, you click buy. That sends an operation to the blockchain network. It gets validated. And that's it. You own this NFT. Nobody can change the fact that you own this NFT. This is fully decentralized. However, there are still two single points of failure between you and the decentralized database, which are the DNS and the front-end server. These can still fail, be hacked, or censored. Censorship is quite common in the NFT space, but that's not the worst. We think the worst is what happens in DeFi. So DNS and frontends get hacked. Users get their wallets emptied. That's usual in DeFi. 2021, Badger, the platform which helps to use Bitcoin to invest in DeFi, they get their front end updated with a hack. Users are doing usual deposits or claims on the front end, but in fact, they approve the hacker's address to spend all their coins. So this way, the hacker could get $120 million from the users. And this is probably the largest front-end attack in 2021. And many platforms had their DNS attacked instead. So both can be attacked. On the DNS side, there was Curve and Balancer. For instance, their DNS were pointing to another IP address where the hacker put a clone of the website with additional approvals. So $500,000 was lost for Curve users, 200K for Balancer users. And in other examples like Aerodrome Phi attacks, there was a clone of the website where users were directly sending coins to the attacker when they clicked the buttons. Also, we had Pancake Swap and Cream Finance. They were more lucky because the attacker was less subtle. They made a clone of the website, which was directly asking for the private keys. So most users did not give their private keys. By the way, never give your private keys. So all of these happen because the DNS and the front ends do not follow the same guarantees as the backend server, which is using the smart contracts on the blockchains. So these guarantees are immutability and transparency, at least. So what we call truly decentralized Web3 or true Web3 is a web where all the components are based on the blockchain with transparency and immutability. So what we need is a decentralized DNS written in smart contract code, which is immutable, and front ends that are accessible, that are on the blockchain and accessible directly from the blockchain from your node, for instance. That's what we've been building on Massa. So we've learned the blockchain already. So we have the decentralized backend, smart contracts. And now we are ready to launch the decentralized DNS on Massa, where anyone will be able to book domain names. And this is the first step toward the full deployment of the truly decentralized web. The second step will be a bit later. We will deploy the tools to easily use and upload and use front ends on chain. So what will happen in the next days and weeks? The good news is that anyone in the community will be able to choose a free domain name. And this will start this Friday, so 2 days from now, up to Sunday, June 23rd, 23. And then that's all for the free domain name. But then on June 24th, everyone will be able to use the DNS. So once the smart contract is live, anyone can book domain names, and we expect some users to like book many domains even if they don't really need them. That's called squatting in Web2. And that's why we want to give you an opportunity to book at least one domain before the fight begins, before anyone can book domains and when the smart contract is unlocked. Still, be careful during this period, so around 9 days. It's still the first come, first serve. If you all want the same domain, only one will get it. So be quick if the domain you want is rather common. Another thing is, Damir will explain it, the shorter the domain names, the higher their price. So we set up a lottery which assigns randomly a length for your free domain. The length is from 2 to 6 characters. For instance, let's say you get 4. So you can choose a domain name with 4 or more characters, as you wish, 4 or more. But if the name is already chosen by someone, then you will have to choose another one. And the Massa bot will manage all of this, all the bookings during the airdrop, and it will let you know the exact like if the domain is available or not. And we will tell you more on the Massa bot by Friday, of course. So you will know the exact details. On June 24th, we unlock the smart contracts. So from there, you're able to use your domain name, to book new ones, to change the owner, to sell them, to buy them. Damir will tell you more. And finally, later this year, we will update you about the deployment of the tools to help you upload front ends and access front ends from the blockchain. And for this, we will use Massa Station. Okay, so now you might be wondering how the DNS is designed in the inside. How does it work in practice? How you will be able to use it? And this is for you, Damir. Floor is yours.
Okay. So basically, domain names can be used by doing a few steps. So the first step is, of course, to register a domain name, which means that you go on the website, a specialized website, which is mns.massa.net. And there you can register, you can actually register your wallet. And from there, you can register a domain name that points to that wallet. So let's take a concrete example. Let's say you're a user. We call that user A. And that user registers the domain name called mydomain.massa. First of all, the smart contract is going to check if that domain name is already registered. If it's the case, it's going to fail because you cannot steal somebody else's domain, or the same domain cannot point to 2 different addresses. Then we check that the domain name is not less than 2 characters long or longer than 100 characters, or that it contains illegal characters. So only A to Z lowercase dash and 0 to 9 are allowed. These make sure that the domain cannot be cheated. For example, we don't want any kind of Unicode characters there because people can fake things with characters that look almost the same, or with invisible characters. We don't want to complicate things, so we restricted a lot the available alphabet here. Then, of course,
say again, lowercase only.
Lowercase, yes, yeah. Lowercase on. Then a user needs to pay a certain registration fee, as Sebastian mentioned, and this fee doesn't go to us. It's actually locked in the smart contract. You're not paying us there. You're actually just locking coins. This is to avoid any kind of flooding, people reserving for free billions of domain names and things. It's just there for that. and also to give a value to your domain name. So the fee depends on the number of characters. 2 characters is 10,000 Massa. 3 characters costs 1,000 Massa. 4 characters, 100. 5 characters, 10 Massa. And any length 6 or more, up until 100, costs only 1 Massa. Plus, of course, the storage and operation fees, which are usually tiny. So once all this has happened and the user has paid, the user now becomes both the owner and the target of mydomain.massa. Okay, what does it mean? It means that the user is the target, which means that when somebody resolves the domain name mydomain.massa, it will point towards the address of the target, so the address of user A. And the user A is also the owner of that smart contract, of that domain name, which means that the owner can change the target of the smart contract or the owner itself. So the owner can say, from now on, this domain name points to another address, for example, or from now on, the owner is a new person, it's not me anymore. Or, for example, the owner is from now on is 0000, the address 0, which means that nobody is the owner anymore. So I can renounce ownership if I want. And this allows for immutability. So to summarize here, registered domains in Massa do not expire. So once you have a registered domain, it's yours forever until you transfer ownership to somebody else if you want. The registration fee is not given to anyone. It's locked in the smart contract. The owner address can change the owner. The owner address can change the target. And of course, both the owner and the target can be users or smart contracts. That means that domain names can point towards smart contracts as well, not only towards users, and can be owned, managed by smart contract as well. So this is a pretty powerful feature that can open a lot of possibilities. Of course, both the owner and the target can be the null address to show that nobody owns the domain name or that it doesn't point to anything. So these are special cases.
So you mean it's explicit? You can put null and not just a 0000 address?
The front end is going to help you. Basically, the idea is that you put the 0000 address, but that means implicitly that nobody controls that address.
Okay.
You can move to the next slide. Okay. So once we have reserved the domain name, we want to use it. So now I'm the owner of mydomain.massa. It also points towards me as a target. So when any other user wants to know who is behind mydomain.massa, they can just resolve the domain name. So it's a special read-only function in the smart contract. So the user bay will call that function. The smart contract is going to check if the domain is registered. If it's not registered, the resolution is going to fail because it points to no one. Otherwise, it's going to resolve into the target address of the domain mydomain. So this will allow the user B to find the address that's behind that domain name. For information, multiple domain names can point to the same address, but one domain name can only point towards one target address. So I want to insist here that resolution is done anonymously, on-chain, without paying any fees, without emitting any operations. It's a pure read-only call. And resolutions can also be done by smart contracts. So if a smart contract wants to resolve something, they can do it directly from a call. So it works for both users and smart contracts. Of course, if I don't want a domain name anymore, I can also get rid of it. One way is to transfer ownership and target to somebody else. Another way is just to free it, because remember, I paid a fee. So maybe I want to recover some of that money. So for that, I can call a free function inside the smart contract. And this function, what it does is that first it checks if my domain is registered. If it's not, it's going to fail. It's going to check that I am indeed the owner of that domain, because if I'm not, I cannot free somebody else's domain. It's gonna then reimburse to the caller, to myself, the 50% of the registration fee. So remember, I pay the fee to register. Here, when I free, I get 50% of the coins back. The rest is locked forever inside the smart contract. You can say it's burned. So once the domain is freed, it becomes available again. Anybody can register the domain name again. And I have recovered 50% of the fees I had paid. So the non-reimbursed 50% of the fee stays inside the smart contract forever, and nobody can access it. It's essentially burnt. So it, in a way, it benefits everyone. So that's the basic functions of the domain name system, and we have worked a lot on integrating this Massa name system inside different aspects of Massa. So first of all, it's already deployed on the mainnet right now in terms of smart contract. And we have added integration inside Massa Station, especially the wallets. So here's a couple of screenshots. For example, when I look at my balance, I also see the list of my domain names associated to that address. That's a picture on the left. And on the right, you see that I can also send coins directly to a .massa domain by writing it in the to field of the transaction. And as you can see, there's a little green text underneath that states that the domain name resolves towards a given address. So it gives you the information live where you're sending your coins.
So it's probably the first use case of the domain names to send easily tokens to your friends, right?
Yes. Then we have also integrated it inside the Explorer. So when you search for a domain name, you'll find the address that's behind it, which is a pretty neat feature. Another way to do it is the opposite, which means that knowing the address, you can also see all the domain names that point towards that address. So this allows you to explore essentially any kind of domain name directly on the Explorer. And one super cool feature as well is that the Massa domain names obey the NFT standard. So MNS domains are actually NFTs, which means that you can list them, exchange them on any NFT marketplace. And that's something we're going to do as well. And that's a very cool feature, actually.
You probably recognize the marketplace.
Yeah. So that's about the overview of how things work, like as a general approach. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask now. For those who are interested, I'm gonna now dive a bit deeper inside the tech, inside the source code of the Massa name system, because it's open source and you can actually have a look at it. For those who are not interested in the technical parts, feel free to say goodbye. But yeah, it's actually quite interesting for those who know about code a bit.
So if you want, we take the first questions then?
Yes.
Okay. So can we buy domains today? No. From Friday, you can buy, you can get a free domain going to Discord. We will tell you the details, so stay tuned for the details. Massa to the moon, yes. How much for the domain name for 1 year versus multiple years? You take it, Damien. Easy one.
Yeah. So the domain, once you have registered the domain name, it's yours forever. There is no expiration date, so you pay only once.
So how long is that registration fee? Basically, infinity.
Yeah.
How did we come up with the price for the domain names? I think it was a trade-off between avoiding squatting and still allowing people enough freedom and low cost to just use the domains. And that's why we did it based on the length also.
Yeah, and the scale, the fact that it's multiplied by 10 every time, it's because the number of possible domain names with 2 characters is actually quite small, but it grows exponentially with every extra character. So that kind of matches the scaling of how many available domains of that length exist. And it's also quite readable because it's multiples of 10, so it's pretty straightforward to understand.
Source. So there are 2 things. The smart contract address, maybe you can give it at some point, Damir. And
Yes.
the source code, you're just going to dive into it anyway.
Yes. I think there's one more question. Can websites hosted on the blockchain Massa be operated on any browser, or will you need to help from an extension? Actually, it can be operated from any browser, but you will need to install Massa Station on the side. So the way it works is that, so this is, for now, it's not deployed, right? For now, we only deployed the DNS. Next step will be the web on chain. But the way it's going to work is that Massa Station basically intercepts any kind of domain resolution on your computer targeting .massa domains. If you're familiar with Tor, maybe you know .onion domains. It works in a similar way. So it's going to intercept every time you try to resolve a .massa anywhere on your computer, in your browser or elsewhere. And it's going to actually do the domain resolution on-chain, find where the domain points towards, the address. And from that address, it's going to look whether it hosts a website. If it does, it's going to download the website and display it in your browser. So it acts a bit like a local proxy that overrides the .massa domain, top-level domain. So yeah, it could be used by any browser as long as you have the Massa Station program running on your computer. Can node operators? Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Node operators get a complementary name. That's not what we are going to do. We are going to give away to anyone on Discord. But if you want another one, you can get ready for June 24th at the first minute and get another one.
Can I plug website with this domain? I'm not sure. I mean, okay, I get it. So I guess what you mean is that can this domain name used to browse websites? Can you upload websites for that domain? Yes, actually, we are going to release in the future tools to upload the website on Massa, and any address can host a website. Your address, for example, can host a website itself. Smart contracts can host websites. Any address can host a website. And any address can be pointed towards by a domain name. So basically, the same way the normal web works, you'll be able to use a domain name to point towards a website.
There's one about burning.
What's the question about burning? Sorry, I missed it.
So if I do not need the domain and I want the 50% back, will the remaining 50% be automatically burned, or they will remain on the smart contract?
They will remain on the smart contract, but there is no way to recover them. So it's just as if they were burned.
And can we make partnerships with companies like OVH? Yeah, we could. I'm just wondering. I think our maybe you can tell us more about your idea, but I think our focus will be more to make partnerships with DeFi platforms, for instance, who would benefit a lot from having their front end, one of their front end very secure on the Massa blockchain. So on Massa, you can have front ends for basically anything, an app on Massa, but also an app on something else, an app on Ethereum. It will benefit from the security of Massa, and you will be able to interact with Ethereum.
And actually, it fits well currently, especially in the EU, because there's these new regulations that make basically the people creating the front ends liable for anything that can happen, anything bad that can happen with the smart contract. So more and more DeFi protocols kind of decentralize their front ends. So we see many alternative front ends being hosted not by the team but by somebody else. For example, Liquidity is a good example. They don't even host any front end, also for legal reasons. And the way it works is that the websites are hosted, but the domains, sorry, the front ends are hosted by other entities. Here, we remove completely the concept of entity. It's not hosted by anyone anymore, or in a way, it's hosted by everyone. So I think it would be a very good fit, especially given a legal framework in the EU currently, to host DeFi front ends, whether it's Uniswap, Liquidity, or anything.
When does the airdrop opens exactly? At which time? We will tell you on Discord, probably in the French afternoon on Friday. Yeah, to get more visibility. Yes. Okay. Damir, you want to go on over the code?
Yes. Maybe Maria, if you can switch to my presentation. Yeah, perfect. So for those interested in how it works under the hood, I'm gonna dig a bit deeper inside the smart contract code. It's gonna be short, but I just want to show you a bit. So you can find the source code directly on our GitHub. It's under Massa Labs Massa name service here. And in the smart contract assembly contracts main.ts is where all the source code is. So this is the Massa smart contract for those who have never seen one, and that's how it looks like. It's a subset of TypeScript, which allows people who are familiar with full stack development, web development, to naturally program in it. So here you see all the inclusions, of course. Here's the constructor. This function is called when the smart contract is created. So the full Massa name service, when it's deployed, this function is called when it's deployed for the first time. And one interesting thing is this. You see that we set a storage key that actually means that the smart contract is locked. Locked means that nobody except the owner of the smart contract can register domain names. So by default, right now, the smart contract is deployed on the mainnet, but it's locked. So nobody can register. Why? Because we first want to do the airdrop before people start squatting all the domain names that would be airdropped otherwise. And after the airdrop is finished, we will remove this lock. We'll remove this lock, and this will allow anybody to be able to register domain names. We are also going to lose ownership afterwards, so that we cannot lock it again, even if we want it. So here is the cost calculation. Remember that we said that depending on the length of the domain, the cost is different. So that function does that calculation. Of course, here the numbers are in nanomassa, not in massa. So that makes them look bigger here, but it's essentially the same thing, just 1 million times more. Here we check that domain is valid in terms of text. Here we check that it's only valid numbers, valid characters, or the hyphen, and that's it. Nothing else is allowed. The length is also checked. And that's what we do here to check the validity of a domain. This validity is checked every time people try to register a domain. So here is just some helper functions. Here is the lock function, which allows us to lock the smart contract as long as we are owners. During the lock period, basically, nobody can register any kind of domain. We can also decide to unlock, which is what we are going to do once we finish the airdrop. Here is an external function that allows anybody from the outside in a read-only call to estimate the cost of allocating a given domain. This is helpful, for example, if from a smart contract you want to estimate the cost of a domain name, or even from the front end, you can do both. Without having to register domain name, you can just estimate its cost. Here is the main function that allows you to allocate the domain name. It starts with checking that the smart contract is not locked, because if it's locked, only the owner is allowed to register. Then we deserialize the arguments. We recover the call parameters, essentially. We check that domain name is valid. And then we register multiple things. First, we have multiple indexes inside the database. One of them associates every domain towards the address, the target address. One associates the domain name towards the owner address. One associates the domain name towards something called the counter, which is the unique token ID to be compatible with the NFT standard. And also the opposite, associating a counter to a domain and a domain to a counter. With all these indexes, basically, we can do direct resolution. So from a domain name towards the address pointed by it. We can check the ownership. We can also do the reverse resolution. So knowing all the addresses, all the domains that point towards a given address. So all this is something we can do. And here we check that the person has paid enough. If they paid too much, we reimburse the extra here. If they didn't pay enough, we crash and everything is reverted, just as if no call had happened. So that's the function to allocate. Then you have the free function, which also checks whether basically the smart contract is locked, checks that the caller is indeed the owner. I forgot to say it before, but that's a very important part. You can only delete a domain that you own. You cannot delete somebody else's domain. And then we can transfer the ownership of the underlying NFT to nobody. So essentially, it kind of burns the underlying NFT. And then we remove all the indexes. Here we compute how much we refund. So it's the creation cost divided by 2, remember? And we refund this to the caller. Then there's the DNS resolve function, which can be called read-only from front ends or directly from smart contracts. That will allow you to associate the address, define the address that's associated to a given domain name. You also have the reverse resolve. So given an address, find the list of domains that point to it. Here is a function called DNS update target that allows the owner of a domain to change the address towards which the domain points. So again, can only happen if the contract is unlocked and we check that the owner is the caller. Only the owner can do that. We also have to update a lot of things here, but it's just indexes, basically. Then there's this function, upgrade smart contract. This allows only the owner of the smart contract, so that would be us for now, to upgrade the bytecode of the smart contract. So this is something that we can do until we renounce ownership. So if we see any bugs or issues before we renounce ownership, we can call this to update the smart contract. Once we are sure that there's no problems and that we will not need to be the owners of the smart contract anymore, we will renounce ownership. And from there on, nobody will be able to call this function anymore. Then same here. For example, if we have to migrate, if there's an issue and we need to migrate to a new smart contract, but there's a lot of locked coins inside the old one, this function allows us to transfer the coins, but you see it's only the owner. And again, once we renounce ownership, this function will not be able to be called by anyone. So the coins that are not refunded will be burned, essentially. Here, it's functions that are linked to associating a domain name to a token ID. Token ID in a sense of the NFT standard. So that associates every domain name to a unique number. Basically, this is useful for NFT collections. Because remember, domain names in Massa are NFTs. Here is the opposite, get a domain name from a token ID. And here, from there on, it's only stuff related to the NFT standard. So the name of the symbol, the balance, the owner. Here you can transfer ownership of a given NFT domain name, which is quite practical because it means that domain names can be listed on NFT marketplaces and can be bought and sold. And remember, each NFT domain name has an underlying value because if you free it, if you redeem it, you get 50% of the underlying balance. So it can have interesting effects on markets. So these are all basically inspired by ERC 721 from Ethereum, and it works essentially the same. Transfer, approval, etc. And that's it. That's all. That's the Massa name system. And here you can see the Massa name service. I'm not going to connect wallets here, but on mns.massa.net, you will be able to check everything. And from there, you'll be able to transfer ownership, manage your domains. And here's a little link to Perfect Universe, where you will be able to trade your domain names, and it's coming soon. So I hope this presentation was interesting for you. And if you have any questions, feel free.
I have one. Can I go first?
Yes.
So domain names are few characters. .massa. I guess in the smart contract you don't store the .massa for efficiency. That means all the .massa are on the front end side or UX side, but on the smart contract is without the .massa, right?
For now, yes. In the future, we can imagine upgrading the smart contract to support multiple types of domain names, maybe even overriding normal domain names like .com, .net, to perform decentralized resolution of these domains. But for now, we are sticking to only to .massa.
Bit ambitious.
So people are asking how to browse a website on mobile. So for now, we don't have a mobile version of this. That's true. And it's going to become a priority for us to figure out a way to make it work on mobile. I believe that the way it would work is some dedicated app that acts a bit like a browser and that does this interception the same way that Massa Station does. But this is planned, but not done yet. Is it possible to use the domain in a smart contract as I can receive any coins, then the smart contract will route it to a specific wallet? Yeah, technically, technically smart contracts can resolve domain names one way or the other. So if you write a smart contract, you can manipulate domain names and route coins. There's no problem. I hope that was the question. If there's a large increase in websites, will the Massa blockchain be able to stand with high network congestion? Actually, it's not that much network congestion that's going to happen. It's state bloat. So the state of the blockchain will increase. And well, fortunately, we have this system in place where storing data costs a bit of coins. And it's computed in a way that if we reach levels of storage where the hard drives of the node runners are at danger of being full. It means that people have allocated almost all the token supply inside as storage. So it's limited naturally in that way. You can learn more about this on docs.massa.net. Actually, there's a nice explainer on that. But to reassure you, there's a natural limit to it. Thank you. If I want to know all registered domains, is there a function for that? For now, we haven't made a UX for it, but technically nothing prevents you from scanning the smart contract itself and looking at its data store. So there's API functions to read the data store of an arbitrary smart contract. In the future, we might add this UX to the Explorer, but yeah, for now we haven't done it.
Will there be different marketplace than Perfect Universe? There will. Stay tuned. You will see some new stuff.
And Perfect itself is improving. It's not an official project, but it's improving over time. So expect improvements on both sides. Also, new marketplaces. The goal is to expand really the ecosystem and make it grow.
No more questions.
Okay.
Sounds good. So then we meet on Friday for those who want to be quick on getting their domains, their free domain for the airdrop. I still have a few things to update on the bot, but it will be ready. So yeah, stay tuned on our networks on Discord and Telegram. And thank you for listening. There will probably be other presentations like this for all the new features going on, with the technical stuff from Damir also. Tell us if you like the technical walkthrough. I think Damir liked it.
Yeah, it was enjoyable to do it, and I think we're gonna do that more often to show you how things work under the hood, because there's no reason. Everything is open source and transparent. Might as well show you exactly how it works, for you to also have a better idea on the guts of the system.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.